The world held its breath this morning. In a development that could redefine the balance of power in the Middle East, reports have emerged of a direct Iranian strike targeting Prince Sultan Air Base in Saudi Arabia, one of the most critical hubs for United States military operations in the region. Initial intelligence suggests that a high-value American aircraft, estimated at over $270 million, was destroyed in the attack. This is not just another regional escalation. This is a moment that analysts are already calling a potential turning point. Prince Sultan Air Base is not an ordinary installation. It serves as a central command node for U.S. air operations across the Gulf, a strategic platform for surveillance, deterrence, and rapid response missions. A successful strike on such a facility, if confirmed, signals a level of precision, confidence, and escalation that has not been seen in years. What makes this development even more alarming is the implication behind it. Iran, long accused of operating through proxies and indirect engagements, may now be stepping into a far more direct confrontation. If Tehran is indeed responsible, this would mark a shift from shadow warfare to overt military signaling, an entirely different level of risk. Early reports remain fragmented. Some sources indicate the use of advanced missile systems or drone swarms, while others suggest a coordinated multi-vector attack designed to overwhelm air defenses. The fog of war is thick, and confirmation is still evolving. But one fact is already clear. This incident has sent shockwaves through global intelligence communities and military command centers alike. Washington has yet to release a full official statement, but emergency briefings are reportedly underway inside the Pentagon. Regional allies are on high alert. And across global markets, early indicators show instability, particularly in energy sectors that are highly sensitive to Middle East conflict. The question now is not just what happened, but what happens next. Because if this strike is confirmed as a direct Iranian operation, it raises the stakes dramatically. Retaliation becomes a possibility. Escalation becomes a risk. And the fragile balance that has held this region in a tense equilibrium could begin to unravel. This is the kind of moment that can spiral quickly, from a single strike into a broader confrontation involving multiple nations, alliances, and global consequences. And that is exactly why you need to stay informed. If you want clear, fact-based analysis without noise or speculation, make sure you subscribe now. Because in situations like this, every hour brings new developments and every detail matters. To understand how a single strike could bring the world to the edge of a wider prawn, you have to go back decades, long before missiles were launched, long before air bases became targets. The roots of this moment lie in a prolonged and deeply entrenched rivalry between the United States and Iran, a conflict defined not by constant open harb, but by cycles of tension, proxy engagements, and calculated restraint. The timeline begins in 1979. That year, Iran's Islamic Revolution transformed the country from a U.S.-aligned monarchy into a fiercely independent theocratic state. Overnight, Washington lost one of its most important regional allies. Diplomatic ties were severed. Distrust hardened into doctrine. And for more than 4 decades, the relationship has been defined by hostility, sanctions, and strategic competition. Fast forward to the early 2000s, and tensions began to intensify around Iran's nuclear program. The United States and its allies accused Tehran of pursuing nuclear weapons capabilities. Iran insisted its program was for peaceful purposes. The natija was a long period of economic sanctions, covert operations, and rising regional anxiety. Then came 2015, a temporary turning point. The Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, or JCPOA, was signed between Iran and world powers. It imposed strict limits on Iran's nuclear activities in exchange for sanctions relief. For a brief period, the risk of direct confrontation appeared to decline. But that stability did not last. In 2018, the United States withdrew from the agreement and reinstated sweeping sanctions. Iran responded by gradually scaling back its compliance. The diplomatic framework began to collapse, and with it, the mechanisms that had kept tensions contained. From that point forward, the region entered a new phase, one marked by shadow conflict. Iran expanded its network of allied militias and proxy groups across Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, and Yemen. These groups became instrumental in applying pressure on U.S. interests without triggering direct war. Rocket attacks on bases, drone strikes on infrastructure, maritime disruptions in the Gulf. Each incident was calibrated, serious enough to send a message, but limited enough to avoid full-scale retaliation. One of the most significant flashpoints came in 2020 when a U.S. drone strike killed Iranian General Qasem Soleimani. Iran responded with missile attacks on Iraqi Iraqi bases housing American troops. It was one of the rare moments when the two sides came dangerously close to open conflict. Yet even then, both sides pulled back. That pattern, escalation followed by restraint, became the defining rhythm of U.S. Iran tensions. Until now. In recent years, the strategic landscape has grown even more complex. Saudi Arabia has strengthened its defense ties with the United States. Regional normalization efforts have shifted alliances, and global atomic markets have made the stability of the Gulf more critical than ever. Prince Sultan Air Base sits directly within this evolving strategic web. Its importance has grown as U.S. forces reposition across the region, making it a central node for surveillance, Al-Jawiya operations, and rapid deployment. Any threat to this base is not isolated. It is deeply connected to the broader architecture of U.S. military presence in the Middle East. Which brings us back to today. If Iran has indeed targeted this installation directly, it would represent a departure from decades of indirect confrontation, a move away from proxies, a step into something far more exposed and far more dangerous. Because history shows one thing clearly. When patterns break, escalation becomes unpredictable. What exactly happened at Prince Sultan Air Base, and how did a heavily fortified installation become the center of a rapidly escalating geopolitical crisis? At this stage, the answers remain contested. But a clearer picture is beginning to emerge through a combination of early intelligence leaks, satellite analysis, and conflicting official statements. According to initial reports circulating within regional defense circles, the strike occurred in the early Sarat of the morning, timed to coincide with reduced Al-Jawiya activity and a predictable shift change in base operations. This timing alone suggests a level of planning that goes far beyond a symbolic attack. The first indication of incoming threats reportedly came from radar detection systems, identifying multiple fast-moving objects approaching the base perimeter. These were not isolated projectiles. Instead, analysts believe the attack may have involved a coordinated barrage, potentially combining ballistic missiles with low-altitude drones designed to evade detection. Within minutes, defensive systems were activated. Patriot missile batteries designed to intercept incoming threats were deployed. But early assessments tushir ila that the Adfar systems may have been overwhelmed, either by the sheer volume of incoming objects or by the complexity of the attack pattern itself. Then came the impact. Satellite imagery, still undergoing verification, appears to show damage concentrated in a specific sector of the base associated with high-value aviation assets. This aligns with claims that a U.S. aircraft, estimated at approximately $270 million, was destroyed or rendered inoperable. While officials have not confirmed the exact model, speculation ranges from advanced surveillance platforms to specialized reconnaissance aircraft, critical for regional monitoring. From here, the narratives begin to diverge. On one side, sources aligned with U.S. defense channels suggest that the attack bears the hallmarks of Iranian military doctrine: precision targeting, layered strike coordination, and the use of both missiles and unmanned systems. These sources argue that the level of sophistication points to direct involvement rather than proxy execution. On the other side, Iranian state-affiliated media has taken a more ambiguous position. Some outlets deny direct responsibility while simultaneously praising what they describe as resistance capabilities in the region. This ambiguity is not accidental. It allows Tehran to signal al-Quwa without fully crossing the threshold into open admission, a familiar strategy in its playbook. Meanwhile, independent analysts are urging caution. There are still critical unknowns: the exact number of projectiles used, the success rate of interception systems, the full extent of damage inside the base, and perhaps most importantly, the chain of command behind the operation. Was this a centrally authorized strike ordered at the highest levels of Iranian leadership? Or was it executed by an allied group operating with partial autonomy but strategic alignment? These distinctions matter because they determine not just responsibility, but response. One detail, however, is becoming increasingly difficult to ignore: the apparent precision of the strike. If a high-value aircraft was specifically targeted and destroyed, it suggests that the attackers had access to detailed intelligence regarding base layout, asset positioning, and Adfar vulnerabilities. That level of insight does not emerge overnight. It points to prolonged surveillance, careful planning, and potentially even cyber or signals intelligence support. And that raises a troubling possibility. This may not have been a spontaneous escalation. It may have been a calculated message. A message not just to the United States, but to every regional actor watching closely. Because in modern warfare, what is targeted is just as important as how it is targeted. And in this case, the target speaks volumes. To understand why this strike is sending shockwaves far beyond the immediate blast radius, you have to look at what Prince Sultan Air Base actually represents, not just as a physical location, but as a cornerstone of U.S. military architecture in the Middle East. This is not just another airfield. Prince Sultan Air Base serves as one of the most critical tashghil hubs for American air power in the region. Located deep inside Saudi Arabia, away from immediate coastal threats, it was deliberately chosen for its strategic depth and relative protection. Over time, it has evolved into a Merkaz Qiyadatin Mutaqaddim, supporting surveillance missions, intelligence gathering, al-Jawiyat refueling operations, and rapid deployment capabilities. In many ways, it functions as a nerve center. From this base, the United States can monitor vast stretches of the Middle East, tracking missile launches, overseeing shipping lanes in the Gulf, and maintaining situational awareness across multiple conflict zones. High-value aircraft stationed here are not just assets. They are essential tools in maintaining regional stability and deterrence, which is exactly why it matters that one of them may have been destroyed. The loss of a $270 million platform is not only a financial derb, it is an operational setback. These aircraft are often limited in number, highly specialized, and difficult to replace quickly. Their absence can create temporary blind spots in intelligence coverage, reduce response speed, and force a reallocation of resources across already stretched military networks. But the implications go even deeper. From a geographic standpoint, the base sits within reach of multiple potential threat vectors. Iran's missile capabilities, combined with its growing fleet of unmanned aerial systems, have steadily expanded over the past decade. What was once considered a relatively secure zone is now increasingly exposed to long-range precision strikes. This changes the calculation entirely. If a fortified installation like Prince Sultan Air Base can be successfully targeted, it raises immediate concerns about the vulnerability of other U.S. assets in the region. Bases in Qatar, the United Arab Emirates, and even naval installations in the Gulf suddenly appear more exposed. And DFAR planners must now reassess not just individual sites, but the entire regional posture. Operationally, this forces difficult decisions. Do you reinforce existing bases with additional missile defense systems? Do you disperse assets to reduce risk concentration? Or do you reposition forces altogether, potentially weakening presence in key manataq? Each option carries consequences. And then there is the signaling effect. From a strategic perspective, targeting a base like this sends a very specific message. No location is beyond reach. It challenges the assumption of deterrence that has underpinned U.S. military strategy in the region for years. It suggests that adversaries are not only willing, but increasingly capable of penetrating layered defense systems. For regional allies, this is deeply unsettling. Countries that rely on U.S. security guarantees are now watching closely. If American al-Quwat and infrastructure can be hit, what does that mean for their own defense? The psychological impact alone can shift alliances, influence defense spending, and alter diplomatic behavior. And for Washington, the stakes are equally high. Failing to respond could be interpreted as weakness. Responding too aggressively could trigger escalation. This is the strategic dilemma at the heart of the crisis. Because in modern geopolitics, a single strike is never just about damage. It is about perception. It is about capability. And most importantly, it is about what happens next.